Hey everyone, this is Brandon Oliveris from Co-Creation Coaching, and I'm here with another Reader's Questions video. Reader's Questions is my opportunity every week to answer your questions about the law of attraction. If you would like to ask a question to be answered in one of these videos, you can go to cocreationcoaching.org/ask and submit your question there. So today you'll notice we don't have much of a question. It's more of a topic. Someone asked me to talk about this, and so I'm going to, but it wasn't really in a question format that I could put into a real quote. But as you see on the slide there, the question is about free will. Someone had come across an old post of mine from probably quite some years ago from another website actually, where I discussed free will and wanted to know about my perspective on it now, and so I promised that I would discuss it. And plus it's a topic I think is rather interesting that a lot of people don't really discuss too much, so I think it's valuable to discuss here. So I guess the real question is, does free will exist? That's generally what people mean when they want me to discuss about free will. And actually, back in my non-dual days, I've talked about how I used to be really, really non-dual. And to some extent, I still am, but I've softened that a lot. But back in my strict non-dual days, my answer to this was actually absolutely not. That there was no free will, and that everything was just sort of, I don't know about predetermined, but everything was down basically to the universe, and that anything that we imagined was actually illusory, so there couldn't be free will. And obviously that perspective isn't too much fun, and it kind of messed with me a bit back then because, I had desires, I wanted to help others, and I felt like if there was no free will, then other people couldn't choose to be, helped by what I said or not, and so there's really no point. And whether I chose to help or not, there was really no point. And so it kind of led to, this negative spiral, and that didn't work too well. And I've had a chance over the years to reconsider my perspective on this, and now I have, I think, more of a nuanced answer to this question, which I want to discuss today. The first thing to say is, with really deep questions like this, it's difficult because there are multiple levels of truth. There is an ultimate level of truth where everything is one. And then, there's like the truth down here in the physical world where, we are separate beings, at least apparently so, and going about our lives. And so it's a little hard to answer any kind of deep philosophical question like this because it can be answered in multiple ways. For example, a lot of religions will fight about, is there one God? Are there many gods? Is there a god and goddess sort of thing, like Wicca believes? Or is there, kind of a pantheistic or panentheistic thing going on, like source? Or what is that? And religions have been arguing about that for millennia. And the answer to that is it depends which level you're on. Like on the ultimate level, there's just one. So it's non-dual, indistinguishable. And as you go down, you could say there's many gods. You could even say there's a god and goddess. There's a main masculine and feminine energy. It's just not a simple answer. So it's sort of everyone's right and everyone's wrong at the same time because they just don't have a big enough picture. It's kind of like, the analogy of the blind men and the elephant where, the analogy, a whole bunch of blind men approach an elephant and they want to know what an elephant looks like. And so they all feel one part of the elephant. One might feel the trunk, one might feel a tail, one might feel a leg, one might feel the elephant's ear, and they think it's different things, a rope or a hose or a tree trunk or a fan or, different things like that. And in a way, they're all right, and in a really important way, they're all wrong. So when you ask something like, is there free will? It depends which part of the elephant you're looking at. And if you say, well, I want the whole elephant, well, it's just really complicated because it's hard to really give a definitive answer on all levels. I'm going to do my best to explain the different levels and what the truth on that level is. And, obviously, this is just conjecture. Until we move on to the other side, none of us are going to know what the truth of any of this is. So this is just my own opinion from, my own experience, and your life might lead you to different opinions. So I'd love to hear really what your comments are on this. So basically, how I see it, on the ultimate level, there is just one. If you read any non-dual text, you have like the Bhagavad Gita, as far as ancient texts are concerned. You have more recently like something like A Course in Miracles that really clearly states that everything is one. There's no difference, right? And you have all these different texts that say that everything is one. And if everything is one, and you ask, does free will exist? The only answer is, exist for whom? Do I, Brandon, on the ultimate level have free will? On the ultimate level, I'm just kind of one with everything else. I'm not a distinct entity that could have free will. I can't choose apart from the whole, because on the ultimate level, I am one with everything. And so if you have many, loci of awareness, of consciousness that are choosing, that's not the ultimate level, because on the ultimate level, there's one. You could almost even say none. You could say there's a void. You could say there's emptiness. You could say there's nothingness in a certain sense. You could say there's, non-being, or however you want to put that. So on the ultimate level, free will doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense because there's just one or even none. And so who could possibly choose on that level? And what is there to choose? Because if the one were to choose, there would have to be two choices. If I choose what color I want to wear today, I have to have more than one choice, or it's not a choice. And that choice has to be separate from me. It's like I can't choose to be a person, because a person is who I am. I am a person, right? I can't say, well, today I'm going to be not a person. I'm going to be, let's say, a dog today or something. Like, I just don't have that freedom. So the one, what can it choose that it's not already? So on the ultimate level, there is no free will, because it doesn't make sense. As you come down from there, I'm going to go kind of on the other end, on the bottom level, if there is a bottom level, let's say, on the level of ego. Is there free will? And I would say that the answer is yes. And you hear me hesitate a little bit with that, I know, because the thing with ego is that the more that you let yourself be in ego, the less you can actually really do. Okay, so your ego is ruled by these subconscious programs, these subconscious habits, these ways of being, where, when something happens and either, you react to that thing, either emotionally or through action or through thought or whatever. And so, in a way, I've always said, the more awake you are, the more free will you have. And I'll come back to that later and explain that. So when you are really sucked up in ego, you're kind of, in a way, just a whole collection of habits and programs that are always going to react in a more or less predictable way. And so even though it looks like free will, it's not necessarily so. There is some free will on this level, because there's always some, light shining through from your soul, from your core essence. But, the more you're sucked up on the ego level, the less free will you really have, because you're defined by those subconscious programs that are in place that are dictating how you act. So on that level, yes, but only a little. Now, as you awaken more and you become more of your true essence, more of your soul, more of your, more united with your true self, your higher self, whatever you want to call it, and the ego just becomes a tool, then I do believe there is free will. And I think that's the truest free will. Because then we can choose what we want to create, because creation does not come from ego. Creation comes from soul. We can choose what we want to create. And I think that our souls are little pieces. And I don't want to say pieces because pieces sounds like the one is all split up into a billion different pieces, but little manifestations, little expressions of the one. And so as little expressions of the one, we have the power that the one has to create. When I say the one, I mean God, the universe, source, whatever you want to call it, the Tao, whatever you feel like calling it. So we have that same power. In the Bible, it says we are created in God's image. And that's, I think, exactly what it means. We have that same power. So as souls, we have that ability to create. But we're also united with the one in a real sense. So it's this dynamic balance between this oneness where we go with the flow and also this choice where we choose. But then there's another level in a sense because, one of my favorite, let's say, occultist figures, I guess, was Aleister Crowley. And he talked about your true will. And if you're following your true will, then everything's going to go fine for you and, you're accomplishing your purpose. And so this, I agree with that sense of true will. He kind of saw it like a star in, having its orbit. Okay, he said, every man and woman is a star. And if you're following your true will, you're not going to conflict with anyone else who's following their true will. So the true will, though, does that come from something we choose? I had a post a while back, I think it was a podcast, about do we really choose our deepest goals? Did I choose to be a spiritual person who wants to teach these kind of principles? I don't really feel like I did. It was just always with me. Did you choose those deepest things that are so important to you? Did you choose them? Were they always with you? Who chose them? So in that sense, did I have free will? I think the only free will I had was to either follow my purpose or not. And that's really the purpose of this physical world. So our purposes, in a sense, are, aligned with the universal flow, with the Tao. And we have the choice to either go with that, to flow with it, or to go against it. And of course, we do have the choice to create, but creating always means going with the flow. And so really the greatest free will we have is to either choose to go with the flow, with the one, and be aligned with our own soul, our own core essence, or to choose to get locked into the ego and, play the part of these subconscious programs and habits. So my final answer, after all of that, is again on the universal absolute level. No, there's no free will because it doesn't make sense because there are no individuals. But on our level, the more egoic you are, the less free will you have because, again, you're in those subconscious programs. And the more you awaken to your own true essence, your own core, the more free will you have. But the greatest free will that you do have is the choice to either follow your true will, to follow your purpose in life, or to attempt to go against it through, ego, through worrying about it, through not believing it's possible. And that's the greatest choice you have. And you have that choice day after day after day. And that is always your choice. And that's why this whole thing exists. Because I don't think it would make sense for all this to exist if there was no free will. So there is, it's just limited in some sense, but you have the right to exercise that by choosing, will I fulfill my purpose or will I be part of the dream, as in living from ego? And that is your choice to make. So I hope that makes sense. I know it's kind of a nuanced answer. Like I said, I'm sorry for that, but that's just sort of how it is. And, but hopefully it makes sense to you. So again, for those who are listening, if you would like to get the transcript for this or just leave a comment, feel free to go over to cocreationcoaching.org/RQ11. And if you'd like to ask your own question for Reader's Questions, you can go to cocreationcoaching.org ask. With that, I hope that everyone has a wonderful day. And again, I'm Brandon Oliveris from Co-Creation Coaching. As always, anything is possible.